Hello, I'm Darren McDonald. Sudbury.com has invited candidates in the provincial election from Sudbury and Nickel Belt to come and have a chat with us. Today, Nickel Belt MPP France Gélinas was kind enough to join us. Hi, France.
Good morning.
I'd like to start, if I could, getting some thoughts from you about this election. You and I have been around for a few elections now, and I've never seen anything like this. The Liberals, even though unemployment is low and they made all kinds of spending promises, are getting killed in the polls. The Tories, traditionally a party of fiscal restraint, are making, spending promises and tax cuts promises. With respect, your party, has done what you normally do, which is make a lot of spending promises. And yet, everyone's getting sort of jumbled in the polls. What do you think is going on exactly in Ontario?
I would say after 15 years of the Liberal government and some of the decisions that they have made, a lot of people have written them off. A lot of people that have been, Liberals all of their lives or go back are saying enough of that. This is not what we voted for. This is not what we expected of them. They have let us down and they don't want to go to the Liberals anymore. So for many of them, for the first time, they're looking outside of the Liberal. So they're looking at Doug Ford and they're looking at Andrea Horwath. So Doug Ford has a minimalist platform. We don't really know what he stands for. He hasn't got a platform. And on our side, on the NDP, we have almost 100-page long platform where we are very upfront about people as to what is it that we're going to do and how are we going to pay for it. So people are looking, and it's a process that I would say is interesting to watch. And it feels good at our end, I must tell you, but in Nickel Belt, we take nothing for granted. We start every morning the same way by telling ourselves we're losing by 100 votes, we have to work harder. And this will continue throughout. And I would say most of my colleagues in now 124 ridings are doing the same thing. Let's work really hard. Let's people find out what the NDP stands for, what it is that we would do if we become government, and how we would pay for it. And if those are, dental care, pharmacare, child care, winter road maintenance, regulation of the price of gas, if those are things that interest you, then please vote NDP.
Now, you mentioned a lot of the promises that your party has made, and one thing I think all the parties have in common are, some pretty ambitious spending promises. But in Ontario right now, we spend $12.5 billion a year servicing the debt. Under your party's plan, that would rise to $15.5 billion by 2023, I believe, and we would still have a $2 billion debt. And I wonder, is your party concerned about the deficit? And if you are, where's the plan to get back to surplus?
Everybody has to be concerned about the deficit. I mean, we have seen what, the Conservative can speak a good game about the deficit, but when they were in power, they ran deficit budget every single year. The Liberals talked a good game about bringing us back to a balanced budget, but they did it in a way that the Auditor General says it was never balanced. It's pretty easy to shoot holes through what they've put through. Meanwhile, the debt is growing. This is something that needs to be addressed. This is something that we need to seriously look at, while at the same thing realizing that during those years, the gap between the rich and the poor has gone exponentially. The rich have done very well, especially if you're connected to the Liberal Party. You have done very well in this province. The poor has gotten poorer, and the middle class has taken a step back. So we will undo the damage done by 20 years of Conservative and Liberal government to make sure that we have Ontario economy working at full potential. And how do you do this? You rebuild the middle class. You make sure that there is opportunity for economic growth, and I can go into more details. There are opportunities right now. If you look at the technological changes, there are great opportunities for the educated workforce that we find in Ontario to do very well. If you look at climate change, sure, it puts some industry at risk, but it also opens up all sorts of new opportunities for business and our economy to grow. Let's face it, Ontario is the biggest economy of our country. We have opportunities to grow, and as the economy grows, then balancing of the budget becomes a whole lot easier because you need a bit of both. You need more revenue to be able to make sure that the middle class continues to thrive, and you need a share in this prosperity that we want to
So
bring
you
forward.
think your party will be able to balance the books without making some tough decisions on spending and maybe even taxation?
Oh, we have been very clear with people that we are going to increase taxes. If you make over $220,000 a year taxable income per person, you will pay 1% more. If you make over $300,000 a year, you will pay 2% more. And we call this paying your fair share. You are in the positions where you can help. You are in the positions where you are able to pay a bit more. We will ask everybody to pay their fair share. So yes, we are taxing what we call the higher income earner, but you would be surprised how many people fall into these categories. As I said, the rich have gotten richer. We're asking them, we're not giving them any tax cut. This is what Doug Ford does. $20 billion tax cuts to the people at the top. We're not doing this. We are asking them for a 1% or a 2% increase depending on where they are.
I was surprised on that topic when I was doing some research on the platform. If you're making $200,000 and $300,000 in Ontario, right now you're already paying about 52% in tax. That's more than half. Can you really keep squeezing? Like, I'm not in that tax bracket, obviously, I'm far away from it. But how much can you squeeze people when you're already taking more than half of what they earn?
So it's not quite accurate because the first $30,000 they make, they don't pay interest, they don't pay taxes on. The tax bracket increase as your level of income increase, but it's not every dollars that you make under $220,000 that is taxed at 52%. It's just the top. I think the last tax bracket changed at about $180,000. So it's the last $40,000 that you pay 52%. For every dollar below this, they pay a whole lot less, and it's a scale that goes up. So yes, the money you make above $220,000, you'll pay 1% more. The money you make above $300,000, you will pay 2% more.
Right, but that's still a very high rate. You know, we're approaching almost Swedish levels of taxation. Is that a sustainable tax policy?
We believe that everybody should pay their fair share. We get to live in this great province where we have all of those opportunities, where we have all of those social programs that everybody benefit from, whether it be going to the hospitals, or sending your kids to a good school, or traveling on roads, or all of this is paid for by the taxpayer. If you are in a position where you're able to pay a little bit more, we will ask you to pay your fair share.
Maybe we can move to Hydro One right now. When the Liberals privatized 60% of Hydro One, it was very unpopular. Your party has promised to put it back in public hands. My question is, how much is that going to cost? Where will that money come from? And how will that benefit consumers? Because it's not like electricity prices weren't a problem when it was a public utility.
I agree. The rise in electricity price has been a problem for some time. I represent the people of Nickel Belt. We're talking about 33 little communities. In many of the communities that I represent, there is no natural gas. You cannot get oil delivery or propane delivery. So you heat with electricity, and you chop wood and heat with wood. Heating with wood is really difficult when you get older, and paying electricity, I'm door knocking and people go and show me their bill. Look, France, I paid $1,200 in January with all of the cuts that the Liberals were supposed to do to hydro bills. They can't afford that anymore, and they also remember that as 10 years ago, they were having a bill that was $120 a month. Why did it grow so much? So the the answer to this is that the Conservatives started to privatize our hydro system. They cut short of privatizing Hydro One. The Liberals took it a step way further by the privatizations of Hydro One. We will bring Hydro One back into public hands. How do you do this? Hydro One pays dividends. Now that we have a privatized Hydro One, the shareholder wants high dividends. We hold 40% of those shares, so the dividends that will come, we will buy back shares till we are majority owner, and hopefully full owner of Hydro One, so that when they make decision, when Hydro One makes decisions such as investing in a coal burning generating station, really, Ontario should not be in the business of investing into coal. We work really hard to get rid of coal, and here we have what used to be a public utility, now private, doing exactly the opposite.
Yeah, and I don't disagree, but I still don't understand. I think everyone knows that the hydro system is a bit of a mess in Ontario, but how does making it public again lower rates, and how you're going to take it from the dividends, but isn't that money already earmarked for something else? Aren't you?
No, we had already. If you look at our platform, you will see clearly the money that was coming from the dividends as a revenue is fully identified as a revenue that we won't have no more, because we are buying back the shares with those dividend revenue. And how will it help? Electricity is not a luxury. It should be. And it should not be sold as a luxury, and we should not be paid prices that makes it a luxury item. It is something that everybody in Ontario needs, and I will tell you, in Northern Ontario, it is even more important because of the limited choices that we have. So how does that change? Once you have people at the top that look at this as a resource for a province, a resource that you can use for economic development, a tool that you can use to make sure that the economy and the people of Ontario thrive, it makes all the difference. Right now, the goal of Hydro One is to make money for their shareholders. We would completely change this by the goal of Hydro One is to provide good services, grow our economy, and bring fair electricity prices to the people. How do you do this? You get rid of the different delivery charges that they charge the people that I support.
We're just running a little short on time, so I just want to ask a healthcare question before we finish up.
Sure.
Here in Sudbury, we all know what an ALC bed is. There's obviously a crisis in terms of availability of long-term care beds, but what I want to focus on is home care. One thing that I've heard for a long time is more investments in home care would save the system a lot of money. And I know, I went through it with my mother. A lot of people went through it where they wanted to stay home, but they couldn't get enough services. So what's your party going to do for the poor personal support workers who are underpaid, who have to travel long distances and have a very stressful job?
You're absolutely right. Our home care system is broken. It fails more people than it helps every single day. We are the only province that have privatized their home care system the way we do. We look at Quebec, we look at Manitoba, we can look at any other province in our country. They don't have the problems with their home care systems that we have. We are the only one with this type of problem, and we created this. Mike Harris created that when he privatized home care. It is what it is. Let's move forward. How do you move forward? Step number one, you make home care jobs good jobs so that you're able to recruit and retain a stable workforce. I can tell you from experience, my father-in-law, 93 years old, qualified for home care, had 2 baths a week. In a span of a month, I think it was 7 different people asked him to strip naked and go into the tub. After a while, he didn't want home care to come no more because you have no dignity. You really, really feel like nobody cares about me. How could they ask me to strip naked in front of 7 different strangers because they could not recruit and retain the stable workforce? We will make PSW job, home care jobs, good jobs so that people stay into the system like we used to. VON used to have people retiring from VON. They were the only one providing home care. Mike Harris came, privatized this, and we have the mess we have now.
France, thank you for your time today. I appreciate it. Head to Sudbury.com on June 7th as we bring you live coverage during election night.